Hello class, let's take a look at section 6.3. Now this is the main idea on 6.3. We're going to be looking at multiplying or dividing fractions. And let me give you the rules for multiplying. So if we deal with multiplication and you have a divided by b times c divided by d, the main rule just says you're going to multiply the numerators and the denominators and then factor and cancel any common factors. So this is going to be a times c divided by bt as long as bt is not equal to 0. So on any multiplication of fractions, you're looking at the following formula. Now, if we happen to be dealing with division, to divide fractions, this is the main idea. If you have a fraction and you're dividing by c over d, what you're going to do is you're going to recopy the formula again, so a over b, and then you are modifying the division sign to a actual multiplication. In this case, we're going to be multiplying, and the final answer, you're going to actually flip this fraction and you end up multiplying by the reciprocal. So in this case, d over c, and this is just AD over BC as long as BC it's technically not a 0 value. So this will be the main formula if they're asking us to divide a fraction, which represents, well, multiplying by the reciprocal. We'll explain that in another video, why that we end up with that actual answer. So let's take a look at example 1. Now, actually example 2. Part A. And in this particular problem, all they're asking us to do is multiply two fractions. Now the basic idea is that you're going to multiply it, so this is 2 times 9 over the values of 3 times 8. But before you carry any multiplication, what they want us to do is basically take a look at common factors and cancel any values that reduce. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it as 2 times 3 times 3, that actually represents the value of 9. It's 3 times 3. And then in your denominator, you technically have 3 times. And I'm going to break down the 8 and rewrite it as common factors so we can carry a cancellation. So 8 represents the values of 2 times 4. And then the main idea on any multiplication of fractions is that you cancel common factors. So in this case, this 2 cancels that 2, this 3 cancels that 3. So our main answer for this problem, as we will reduce the fractions, on the top we're just left with a 3, and then on the bottom a 4. Let me write it as an actual 4. So for this particular problem, this is our final answer, since we're just multiplying 2/3 times the values of 9/8, and we end up with 3/4 as a final answer. Now let's actually apply the formulas on problem B. In problem B, it's very similar to the previous problem, but we're carrying a division. So in this case, you're just looking at the values of 2/3 times. Remember that you technically have a division, and then we're going to rewrite it as, well, 8 divided by 9. And then at this point, we're going to multiply, but cancel common factors. So in this case, I'm just going to rewrite this as 2 times, well, 4 times 2, and then 3 times 3 times 3. And all I'm doing is basically rewriting the 8, that 9 also in this format. And notice that there's no common factors. There's no actual same value on the top and the bottom that will cancel out. So our final answer for this one, we're just going to end up with the following. So in this case, well, the top just happens to be 16 divided by the values of 27. On the answers that you're submitting, if you were to have an improper fraction, leave it like that. That's perfectly fine. The software may want you to reduce it, and some of the fractions, they may want you to do some sort of a decimal approximation. But for the problems that you're submitting in Canvas, you're just basically providing the fractions. Make sure that you reduce them